In the year 1932, a strange conflict took place that would see man wage war against another creature. This is not the story of the First World War or the Second World War. The bloody event I'm about to speak of is the Emu War, or the Great Emu War, which happened in Australia. There are many accounts of this story. The Great Emu War is a topic that is highly debated among many, and several internet users and researchers across the world are searching for the full details about the war. Since this event is greatly exaggerated on the internet, permit me to do you the favor of telling you everything that happened. Many have wondered how the Australian military, armed with machine guns, lost to a bunch of defenseless, flightless birds. It may sound unbelievable, but this story is true. But did the emus really win the war? What exactly happened in 1932 and what went wrong? This video is brought to you by NordVPN. It is worth noting that NordVPN is one of the best VPNs to use right now. They offer you thousands of servers in multiple countries, which can be used to unblock websites. Whenever you use the internet without a VPN, you put your data and personal info at great risk, and such sensitive and private information can easily be accessed, monitored, or even tracked by your ISP or even hackers and online scammers. NordVPN is a must-have tool for everyone. We recommend NordVPN because it safeguards your personal data, makes you anonymous on the internet, blocks malicious websites, stops web trackers, and prevents third parties from monitoring your internet activity. If you are fond of using school or public Wi-Fi, using a premium VPN provider like NordVPN will help you use the internet without being tracked. So, essentially, your emails, download, and history info, as well as streaming activity, can be kept private. Enjoy a more private and secure internet today with NordVPN. You can get up to 72% off on the 2-year plans and be rewarded with 3 extra months. You can see the description of this video to learn more. Now back to the emus. Here is what happened. After the First World War, many veteran soldiers returned to Australia. The Australian government gave them plots of land in a remote part of the country known as Western Australia, with hopes that they would start a new life as farmers and bury the horrific and sorrowful memories of war. It looked like a good move on paper, but things didn't go as planned, and here's why. A large portion of the Australian population at the time were self-sustaining individuals. These people survived and lived on homesteads by planting seeds in the ground and waiting for them to germinate and become food. But things were difficult. Firstly, Australian soil wasn't fertile for farming. The soil was terrible, the ground was very tough to farm or do any kind of agricultural work on, and this made the farming process very cumbersome. Secondly, the Great Depression set in and worsened the situation altogether. Wheat prices dropped to an all-time low, and the government failed to deliver on its proposed subsidies for farmers. The farmers struggled to muster a profit or make a decent living from their crops. Just when they thought they had seen enough, thousands of emus showed up. If you are like me wondering what an emu is, here it is. An emu is a big, fluffy bird that can't fly, kind of like an ostrich, and it's one of the biggest birds in the world. They have long legs and a long neck and are almost as tall as a grown-up person. They have soft brown feathers that look a bit messy, with long, strong legs that help them run super fast, much faster than most people can run. Even though they can't fly like other birds, they have tiny wings hidden under their feathers, so they don't really need them or put them to use. Emus live in Australia, where they wander around looking for food like plants, fruits, seeds, and small bugs. They have big round eyes to see well, and a long neck that helps them reach things high up. They also make funny deep sounds like boom boom, almost like a drum beating, to talk to each other. These birds are very curious and like to explore, which sometimes gets them into trouble, like eating things they shouldn't or getting too close to people. Even though they can't fly, their supersonic legs help them run away quickly from anything that might scare them or be of threat to them. About 20,000 migrating hungry emus found their way into Australian farms after breeding. For the record, a group of emus is called a mob. These birds were all over the place, breaking fences, trampling crops, destroying farm produce, and eating valuable grain. This wasn't the first time emus found their way into human society. Until 1922, emus were a protected species, but they were soon labeled as pests when it became obvious they had no manners. Emus had little mercy for farmers. An average emu sees a piece of farmland as a dreamland where you can eat as much as you want. Now remember, farming in Western Australia was very difficult. So when you see a mob of weird-looking birds trespassing on your farm and destroying the painful fruits of your labor, you aren't going to take it lightly. So, in 1923, a bounty system was implemented, offering a cash reward for every emu killed. Well, this sounded like a brilliant idea at the time, and I'm pretty sure it would have solved the problem, if not for the great number of emus. Not to forget, the farmers were ex-servicemen and were well trained in the use of firearms. Despite having military experience, the farmers couldn't take down a mob of flightless birds because they lacked sufficient ammunition. By 1932, it was clear to everyone that a drastic solution was necessary, like developing a poison to eliminate the emus or even creating a bomb designed to reduce their population. Let me break it down for you. You see, emus are capable of running 30 miles per hour, so it's extremely difficult to kill them with a headshot because they are incredibly fast. Also, their feathers and tough skins are so dense that it would take up to 10 bullets to kill a single emu. The farmers had guns, but their ammo wasn't enough to take down the thousands of emus, so they really needed more guns. They sensed that if the birds weren't dealt with, the people would die of starvation sooner rather than later. Desperate for help, the farmers approached the government for assistance. A large number of the farmers visited the office of the Minister of Defense at the time, Sir George Pierce. They requested quality firearms and machine guns to take down these birds. The government heard their request and decided not only to provide them with the needed weapons, but to send in the military. The Western Australian government took up the financial responsibility of transporting the soldiers, while the farmers provided the soldiers with food and accommodation. Also, the farmers paid for the ammunition used by the soldiers. The Western Australian government paid for the transport of fresh soldiers, while the farmers provided food and accommodation and paid for the ammunition. Not a bad deal if you ask me, but as far as Sir George Pierce was concerned, dispatching his men with machine guns would only equip them and provide good target practice for them, and their feathers would be used to make hats for them. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery was placed in charge of the operation, leading a small group of soldiers. Major Meredith had a total of 2 soldiers at his disposal, with each of them armed with Lewis-like machine guns. They were also given a total of 10,000 rounds of ammunition to kill the emus. They literally thought that taking down 20,000 emus at point-blank range would be easy peasy with such weapons. This sounded like a piece of cake, but would it be so easy? Take a look at this picture. The Australian Army deployed just 2 soldiers equipped with 2 Lewis machine guns and 1 truck. To add to that, they were given 10,000 rounds of ammunition to take down 20,000 birds. This was the plan. Find the emus, shoot them, and save the crops. The soldiers felt they were in a war with big chickens. Little did they know the impending calamity that was waiting to happen to them. First things first, emus' bodies are as tough as hell, and their bodies can absorb some bullets, maybe 2 or 3, before they are taken down. The bodies of these birds can be likened to that of a meat-laden tank. An emu can get away after receiving 2 or 3 bullets. On the first day of the war, the soldiers traveled to the district of Campion, where they found a group of emus. A group of emus is known as a mob. These birds assemble themselves in little groups, and each of these groups has a leader, who is typically bigger and taller than the other birds in the group. The leader signals the rest of the birds when there is danger, and they all scamper for safety. Upon spotting the emus, the soldiers fired bullets at them, but the emus quickly scattered and absconded in different directions. the soldiers shot sporadically, and most of the emus ran away after hearing the sound of the gunshots. This campaign was a failure, as only a few emus were killed. Historical records show that only 20 emus were killed on the first day of the war. However, many emus sustained injuries. Emus are smart animals. Once they feel threatened or endangered, they run all over the place in search of safety. It is impossible to exterminate a group of emus, even if you have 10 machine guns. Their speed and thick feathers made it difficult for the bullet to penetrate their skins. To successfully take down a group of emus, you have to shoot with precision by aiming at one bird per time. 2 days after that incident, the soldiers spotted a bigger group of emus. This time they had 1,000 emus in sight, and they planned to ambush them. They lurked and waited for the emus to get closer before shooting. By the time the emus were close, the soldiers tried opening fire, but then one of the Lewis machine guns jammed, and this made the birds get away. It was an embarrassing situation. The soldiers tried to salvage the situation. The next strategy was to mount one of the Lewis guns on the back of a truck. Unfortunately, this tactic failed as well, because the truck just wasn't fast enough to catch up with the speed of the emus, and since the ride was bumpy, the soldiers couldn't aim with accuracy. A good number of the emus fled the area, and the soldiers succeeded in killing just 12 emus out of a group of over 1,000. At this point, the soldiers were beginning to realize that taking down emus wasn't as easy as taking down chickens. The soldiers launched another attempt on November 12, 1932, after the destruction of crops by the emus. Around 40 emus were killed during the military operation. Despite the use of machine guns, the emus were able to scatter and evade the soldiers. Following the embarrassment and the negative publicity brought by the Army's failure to end the emu menace, the Australian House of Representatives met to discuss the matter. On November 8th, the Australian Army withdrew from the battlefield, and the war was called off after 6 days. The soldiers had exhausted over 2,500 rounds of ammunition and had killed an average of 986 emus. This is ridiculously small compared to the number of birds left. The soldiers were reported to have had about 9,500 rounds remaining from their original supply of 12,000 rounds. The head of the operation, Major Meredith, said in retrospect, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." After weeks of trying, they realized their plan wasn't working, so they decided to pull out. A ceasefire occurred on December 10, 1932, when the Australian military stopped their efforts to control the emus. In the end, the emus won the war, but the victory didn't last for long. In 1923, Australia started a bounty program that paid people to hunt emus because their growing numbers were damaging crops in Western Australia. The emus had been labeled as pests in 1922, and the bounty offered a reward for every emu killed. The bounty aimed to reduce their population and protect farmers' land. Today, these birds are no longer killed for sport, but are protected under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999. In conclusion, the Great Emu War isn't fiction. It happened in reality. But the story is grossly exaggerated and misinterpreted across the internet. While many people say the emus won, others say the emus lost the battle. And another section of people believe that the farmers were the biggest losers because they used so much ammunition and lost a great number of farm produce. This video was brought to you courtesy of NordVPN. NordVPN is a premium VPN provider that safeguards your data and privacy. They have strong encryption protocols and security systems that protect your personal info better than the Australian soldiers who fought in the Great Emu Civil War. Getting NordVPN is like putting a privacy shield around your online activities. It keeps your personal information safe from hackers, especially when you're on public Wi-Fi. like in a coffee shop or airport. It also hides your browsing from anyone who might be snooping, including your internet provider. NordVPN lets you access content that might be blocked in your country, so you can watch shows or visit websites as if you were in a different location. It's a simple way to stay secure and have more freedom online. You may be compromising your privacy and putting your data at risk if you use the internet without NordVPN. Click the link in the description of the video to visit NordVPN and get the latest discount packages. What are your takeaways? I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching this video. Consider buying me a coffee, and that will support me to do more. See you in the next video.